So, hi everybody. My name is Ellen Pensky, and on behalf of Packet Fusion, I want to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn Roundtable. We call it a roundtable because each month, Packet Fusion CEO Matt Pingatore will be talking with industry experts on a wide variety of topics. Today's topic, which is sponsored by Cato Networks, is all about SASE. And the future is now, and it's SASE. And you guys know that that stands for Secure Access Service Edge. Almost everybody got that right, almost everybody right. But some of you may not know Cato Networks, and they actually were the ones who pioneered the convergence of networking and security into the cloud. So we're really excited to hear from them. In the next 45 minutes or so, you'll come away with an understanding of how SASE can better enable you to respond to changes in business conditions in this increasingly competitive marketplace. And as a special feature, and I think this is going to be really fun, Cato is going to be sharing some stories and tips, some use cases from customers who have moved to SASE. So I think you guys will find that really interesting. But first, let me introduce our speakers. Matt Pingatore, as I mentioned, is the CEO of Packet Fusion. He's recognized in the industry as a visionary and is known for his 100% customer-first perspective. He's seen Packet Fusion through many transitions and has adapted and pivoted with the times by staying on top of emerging technologies like SASE and how they'll shape the future. He not only knows how to talk technical, but he understands the technology. And joining the conversation with him are two folks from Cato Networks. First, we have Mark Pay. Mark is the channel director, and his passion is helping channel partners and their customers solve complex networking and security technology challenges. He joined Cato in May of 2019 and has been focused on growing his team through the country, Canada, and LATAM, and evangelizing the potential of Cato's reimagined global SD-WAN. He's worked with a number of wide range of global companies, as we were talking about earlier, and loves to talk about use cases. So that I know that's a passion of his. Also joining us is Paul Van Leerup. Paul is the channel sales engineer for Cato. He's an experienced solutions-focused networking professional with a demonstrated experience in IT services and high tech. He joined Cato Networks in March, been there for maybe 6-8 months, but he served about 20 plus years in various technical roles at Cisco, Microsoft, Asta, and FiberCloud, to name a few.
I couldn't be more excited about where the world's going right now with networking. Mark and I don't know if you guys caught on earlier, we kind of reminisced about our history and the Masergy world, and they just got bought by Comcast. But, you know, we've kind of seen the evolution of this, you know, should I go back to frame relay days and voice over frame? And, you know, I'm not going to date myself that long, but let's get up to DIA and MPLS and VPN and SD-WAN. And, you know, Mark has seen it all, as I think I have, not to the extent he has. And now we're on to this next generation network where we're combining things as opposed to this fragmented approach to solving problems. So I couldn't be more excited to have Cato, who's doing some really cool things. There's a lot of people doing things with boxes, you know, and they sell them to people. You manage your own. There's people that'll have their offering with boxes on other people's networks. There's carriers that are buying boxes and putting them in their networks. But Cato does something, I think, pretty special. I'm not going to steal your thunder, Mark, because you're going to tell the story a lot better than I can. But, you know, I'm going to I end that poll. I'll share the results. You know, Mark, you can see it right there. We have a couple still already on SASE, which is pretty cool. SD-WAN, but literally VPN or equivalent is still the dominant one out there, and I get it. DIA, there's still a couple only doing a lot of clouds, and there's only one still on MPLS. We're going to find that person. That's what we're going to do. So, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you get to go.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been, I think, Matt, you and I probably met almost 15 years ago. So it's been quite a ride. And in the end, you know, technology continues to evolve. But as we've all seen with some things, there's now sort of a dominant design, a reference architecture that's become really, really sticky. And we'll talk a little bit about how that core tectonic model has changed and shifted. So the big things that we're seeing from a networking and security perspective are that MPLS networks no longer serve customers of all sizes, from large enterprises to more mid-sized and smaller businesses. MPLS, which used to be designed to connect branches when everyone was at work, to data centers where all the applications resided. Now the applications are all over the place, and so are the users. So the MPLS transports just don't do the job they used to, and they're a little pricey. So moving toward more commodity internet connections at the edge, getting multiple connections and bonding them together, and having a more higher availability, sustainable service that also provides a whole range of different optimization types of features is a much more cost-effective way to connect networks and a more sustainable architecture for getting to cloud and being able to handle those migrations into cloud architectures and SaaS. So MPLS alternatives and MPLS replacement are becoming a big cost driver toward network design transitions. Security as a service, where your security appliances start going end of life and replacing those services with cloud-based models, that is also a very sticky type of solution archetype that's beginning to displace the old ways of doing things. And between the MPLS alternative, SD-WAN movement, and the security as a service movement, these are the two big ROI drivers for network transformations for most customers that we're seeing. Again, almost every size, type of customer in every vertical market. The less sort of hard ROI elements are these performance-oriented pieces, where if you're using a global organization, or rather if you're using any sort of global aspect to your operation where you've outsourced manufacturing or your call center, and performance has gaps in terms of packet loss, jitter, and latency, that can be very disruptive to the flow of business when you're trying just to keep all the users happy, keeping third-party contractors happy too. Sometimes they need to be connected in the network, but if their experience getting to the application they need is subpar, they can't be as productive as they can be. Similar type of issue for a remote worker, with a lot of folks now working from home, and a lot of those folks complaining into the help desk that their connections aren't solid, that they aren't getting good performance for a remote desktop, for the 3D rendering software they're using, if that's an application. VoIP and video are sometimes working great and sometimes not. That unpredictability in performance can be very harrowing, and in some cases revenue impacting. Cloud migration is another big factor with a lot of customers that are moving off-premise into cloud. They need a network that can support multi-cloud. They need to be able to have everything connected in a core architecture that allows for more seamless transfer of workloads, especially when you're able to reduce costs by doing so. And in the end, simplified management sometimes becomes a really big driver as well. Just the notion of being able to see everything everywhere and have real-time change control over your empire can be critically important. And SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, the technology we're going to talk a lot about today, solves for all of these different business challenges all at the same time. But it's designed to be a cloud-delivered service that can be layered in to augment whatever you're doing now and be able to help fill in those gaps and then replace additional component solutions as they go end of life. So it's a very scalable, transitory way of being able to handle these different challenges, either one at a time or in chunks, depending on which ones bother you most.
Who came up with the term Secure Access Service Edge? Because I'd like to come up with a better term. It's just a mouthful.
We're going to talk a lot about that. So Cato's been at this now for 6 years. In 2019, Gartner came along and decided to give this a name. In trying to figure out where to put Cato in their little magic quadrants, Gartner decided that what Cato was bringing to the market was something net new. It was a convergence architecture for all of the networking and security functions that customers needed to use, but it was delivered as a single cloud service, something they had never seen before. So they decided to give it a name, Secure Access Service Edge, and have basically wanted to raise the bar so that all the vendors in the networking and security space start to adopt this model, and that strategy is working really well. It's definitely happening. SASE is now a thing. And we're very, very happy with Gartner for doing that, because they help give us a much bigger voice. Matt, you want to talk about that poll question and how the results?
Yeah, I think I shared the results already. I think what everybody's seeing it, like literally everybody's got people working from home. Huge benefit to what Cato is doing. This distributed workforce, how they connecting, how they optimizing their bandwidth, what are they doing, what kind of security they have. We're going to get there, some cool stuff.
Indeed. So Catos Founders, again, we got our operation started in 2015, kicked off live service in 2016. We started in North America in 2017. So startup, from every angle. However, we have been at this for 6 years now. We are now a $1 billion company as of our last valuation, a little over 1.2 billion valuation, about 900 enterprise customers under our belt. So to give you a sense of scale, when CloudGenix was acquired by Palo Alto a little over a year ago, they had about 250 enterprise customers. And Matt, you had talked about the acquisition where Comcast acquired Masergy. It was noted in that press release that after 20 years of building Masergy, they had about 1,400 enterprise customers. So at 900 after only 6 years,
did they ever announce
it definitely means we're doing something right.
You're a man in the know. Did they ever talk about? No one's ever known the price yet. How much did they pay for it?
Nope. It was not publicly disclosed.
I know, but you're a man in the know. Come on, you got to know. So I know I've been trying, and no one will give it to me. All right, keep going. Sorry.
There's a lot of money in this industry, so I'm sure that they sold for a pretty penny.
Right.
But with Cato, we've seen 200% year-over-year growth for 4 years in a row. So there's definitely something that this model brings to the table that's unique, and in alignment with our original vision. So Shlomo Kramer, who's our CEO, who's considered by some as sort of the godfather of the cybersecurity industry, he co-founded Checkpoint back in the mid-1990s. He also co-founded Imperva. Our chief operating officer co-founded Encapsula. He actually wrote a lot of the code for this globally distributed DDoS mitigation company. And these two gentlemen just had a difference of opinion with the rest of the industry. They thought that the whole industry, which was sort of doubling down and focusing on appliances, they thought they were going the wrong way, and that a more simple architecture for networking and security as a convergence array needed to be delivered from the cloud. That was the initial premise. And although our initial backers, Lightspeed and Greylock, thought we were nuts because we're going after all the telcos and we're going after all the giants in the networking and security space, Cisco, Palo Alto, Zscaler, we're going after everyone at the same time. This idea has definitely panned out and has definitely brought to light a new way of architecting that user to application connection. The remote access user component has been a heavy aspect of our growth, especially over the last year, in that we deliver something unique for the remote access experience. And we'll talk a little bit about that downstream. So let's begin with a core premise. And that's the notion that displacing premise-based architectures that are delivering required capabilities with cloud-delivered subscription-based versions of the same capabilities, that is definitely a thing. We've seen massive migrations away from Microsoft Exchange servers to Office 365, from phone systems over to UCaaS, and having a cloud-delivered subscription that delivers those same capabilities, giving you the same control over the provisioning and user experience, but without the encumbrance of the infrastructure of those capabilities, has helped to for a lot of businesses just to focus on their core business and to maintain the level of autonomy that's needed with all those capabilities without being burdened with the infrastructure related to it.
So
Meanwhile, the networking and security space has been a little bit behind. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
You're basically saying you're going to make it super simple for everybody to get into this, and they're not going to have any pain. They get rid of all their managed hardware, and you guys just do it all. Too easy. Seems too easy.
Well, in the end, in some cases, depending on where you are as a customer within your life cycle, it may make sense to hang on to those HA Palo Alto firewalls that sit in your data center. But you may be thinking, we want to move to commodity internet, get rid of our MPLS. And what we would need to do with Palo Alto is put one of these boxes in every location. And that may seem like a staggering, daunting task. So if you're somebody like a Trader Joe's, and you're faced with a router replacement or firewall replacement, and you realize with an entity like Cato and a solution like Secure Access Service Edge from Cato that you could get rid of those edge appliances, replace it with a lightweight gateway. We call it a socket. We'll talk a little bit about the architecture, but the brain is in the cloud as opposed to in the appliance. It allowed for an entity like Trader Joe's with 500 plus locations, Sixt Rent-A-Car with over 1,200 locations to get off of that hardware refresh wheel,
I think,
and be able to have a more cloud delivered approach, a cloud rendered service, more in alignment with Office 365 and UCaaS versus the very appliance oriented nature of a lot of networking and security companies.
I think you picked up Trader Joe's just to rib me, and that's the one you always throw back at us. That's our customer on the CCaaS and UCaaS side, and we didn't have enough. What's the forward thinking as to bring in Cato for the network design? All of a sudden they did it. Like, wait a minute, what did we miss? So lesson learned. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that one up.
It's okay, Matt. It happens.
Are there more of these that you have in your back pocket that I appreciate it. No, I love it. It makes me work harder when one of our customers does something and they don't know that we do stuff. It makes me mad, but it makes me work harder. So keep going.
No problem. For many customers, they've gone about this task of trying to solve for user to application experience by getting one solution at a time based on each problem as it arises. So in attempting to move away from MPLS or augment MPLS with commodity internet, SD-WAN several years ago rose to the occasion to solve for that one problem. But if you move things to cloud, which is the whole driver behind a lot of SD-WAN adoption, you have to now get additional solutions to address moving from premise to cloud. You have to accelerate those applications so they behave. You have to secure them all. And then if you start doing, enabling your global aspects in terms of global manufacturing, if you've outsourced your call center to the Philippines, you have to address those global locations in many cases with other solutions from other providers so that, again, that user to application experience is maintained. And then God forbid something weird happens and we all have to start working from home in the name of public safety. How do you pivot toward a VPN for everyone type of solution? In fact, is VPN a good idea, given that it typically grants network level access as opposed to granular application level access, like a software defined perimeter solution could do? So in the end, when you have one of each of these things, you wind up with this, this pantheon of vendors that you have to manage, all these different contracts, all these different solutions, and sometimes things can slip between the cracks, especially from a security perspective.
So I just
go ahead, Matt. You want to talk about the next poll?
Yeah, just throw out another poll. So 72% of you said you have people working from home, yet only 30% have answered this. So I know there's more people that can answer this. I need a couple more answers, but it's what we have fully expected. 80% are the basic antivirus OS firewall built-in stuff. And then the full solution already placed, there's 20%, 17% is getting a little lower. 15% already have a full solution in place. So kind of what I expected. There's no one that has nothing. Thank you for being the nothing. I'll end that and I will share the results with you guys. I think you guys can all see that there. 86% doing the basics, and there's 14% doing the full, and nowhere near, not even 50% are even answering. So pretty good little cross section of what's going on. Thanks, guys.
Indeed.
Okay, back to you, Mark. Keep going.
So with each of these different solutions serving a certain aspect of the overall more holistic design that's needed, again, to connect applications and users, again, it becomes unmanageable. And it becomes a situation where you have to cobble this together yourself and manage it yourself, or you have to outsource it to a telco and have them deal with it. The problem is the complexity remains, even if someone else is managing it. It doesn't make it any less complex just because it's off your plate. And then sometimes outsourcing it in that manner and having a telco or a managed provider, to curate this for you, sometimes that could be really expensive because all of those products then get marked up and have additional costs related to it.
Yeah, I love that concept. Like, you know, I come from a world where I sold boxes and support on those boxes and support people to manage the boxes and the blinky lights that literally I got to go look at, and I could press buttons. And there's still people that like, they want to see the blinky lights and they want to press the buttons. I don't fight them. We got a solution for them. To me, it seems like where I'm going and where I'm steering people mostly towards is kind of this outsource model, do more with less, focus on your core business, let the experts handle your security, let them handle your network, let them handle your telco, your UCAS and your CCAS. That's guys like us come in and, you know, outsource all this to us, and you guys focus on your core competencies. And it's interesting. I have some results here that were counter to what I thought they would be. I thought they'd be flipped exactly the other way. We've got a couple more. I'm going to end it here. If anybody wants to get their last one in, I'll share the results. It looks like about a little less than half of us are all participating. So I think we're getting a good number here of who's going to be participating. But about 70% still like owning and self-managing, which actually is surprisingly a great opportunity for us.
It's actually not surprising, Matt, to me at all.
Is that right?
Because a lot of customers like buying things because they want to have control over it. And whenever they're using a managed service, especially from a telco, sometimes that control is stripped away. You have to issue tickets to make basic changes. And a lot of customers hate that, and I don't blame them.
And what do you say though? But that's, I mean, you're selling the outsourced managed service model.
Yes and no. What Cato does is really weird, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You know, we provide and deliver a full turnkey service and then give the keys to the customer so they can manage it themselves. It's a self-service platform. It has co-management options. So if the customer would like us to manage parts of their empire while they manage the rest, in the end, a lot of customers have the skills to be able to do a lot of these things in terms of networking and security policy and rule management, adding and provisioning users, all the things that are needed to run the empire. A lot of customers have the skills and the talent to be able to do that. In some cases, they don't, where we do provide a full turnkey service in that event. But in order to give customers the level of control that they want, the whole benefit of buying a solution and managing it yourself, what if you could get a turnkey managed service that you can manage yourself? It's the best of both worlds. Very unique.
Awesome. I love it. It is very unique. A turnkey managed service that you can manage yourself. It's like an oxymoron, but it's an oxymoron that works.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
Cool. Keep going.
So a sharp contrast to the point solutions of the past, what Gartner believes is going to be true from here to forever is this notion of convergence, where all of these products, which again is the premise behind Secure Access Service Edge, and again what Cato has been up to for the last 6 years, is this notion that things like SD-WAN and WAN optimization, secure web gateway, CASB, zero trust, software-defined perimeter, VPN replacements, that none of these should be products at all. They should be features inside of a more holistic platform-based architecture, delivering all these elements to customers all at once, so that there's not this separation of networking and security functions. They're really just, if you look at it holistically, they're just rules and policies around different aspects of the user to application experience. You know, the north-south aspect, the security functions, determine who can go where when they're going out or coming in on the internet, when they're connecting to cloud applications. But there's a WAN element, the east-west version, where we want to optimize the user to application experience, in some cases users to users, depending on how the enterprise is structured in terms of different work groups and the application they need to access. Having both axes at the same time in one platform to be able to have tight steering and control and full visibility of everything everywhere is almost like the holy grail for networking and security experts. So where Gartner sees this going is that you know, there's a need for simplicity. There's a need for flexibility, and convergence can help deliver on that. The other big bang with convergence is convergence often compresses costs, because if you can, again, instead of acquiring all these elements as separate products from different companies, if you can get them all from the same company as features delivered together, there's some pretty significant cost compression that can come as a result of these things being delivered all together. So network as a service, Matt, is the distinction between an appliance-oriented network service like Silver Peak, if you want to think of that type of solution where it's an appliance rendered service. Network as a service, things like SD-WAN as a service, it would be more in the realm of like an Ariaka or BigLeaf, delivering it as a cloud service. So what Gartner realized is that Cato delivered that aspect, but also the network security as a service elements, similar to Zscaler in archetype versus what Palo Alto and Cisco, Versa, and other appliance-oriented solutions are delivering. So we were almost like, if Zscaler and Ariaka had a beautiful baby with superpowers, that's basically what Cato's been delivering in the market to customers of every size.
Perfect timing.
And it delivers all those things together.
Perfect timing for this question. It's going to be a softball to you. It says, why is it so essential that SD-WAN and security be converged? I mean, I think you're talking about it right there, but just keep going. Riff on that.
Yeah, in the end, if you deliver a security solution to home workers, let's say Sue is using her own device working at home or working from the beach or from Starbucks. If we deliver security services to Sue, then we connect her to the applications that she needs. But what's missing there? We need to optimize the experience at the same time. That's where having networking and security together can benefit even home workers like me. What I need is for a service to use my laptop and punch a hole through my home AT&T internet to give me a protected path that's encrypted, but also delivers a Hyperloop experience to get to my Salesforce instance, to get to my Office 365 instance. If I can optimize that experience for the user, then enterprises are able to see higher adoption with these different remote work tools. So that's where some of the benefits of convergence come into play, where you're able to not only secure all those transmissions, but also optimize the permissible transmissions at the same time. And networking and security is so intrinsically linked now. If you just use SD-WAN with LAN optimization, you can't just do that. You have to have security too. So having both together, that's where
I think
the entire industry is beginning to pivot and shift.
I think you talked about some of the benefits that you can just intrinsically see. I think now it's like, it's one of the ones just on the OpEx, CapEx, just the finance, purchasing portion of it. Of like, if all of a sudden I got 10 sites and I got to buy, to your point earlier, 10 Palo Altos and 10 CloudGenics. They seem to be kind of one, but they're different products and then different OpEx. And it's just like, I got to make them work together. It's just like, well, wait a minute. Well, I got all these, now I've got, in your point with our customer, Trader Joe's, 500 customers. Like you got to buy 500 boxes, 500 SD-WAN boxes and 500 security boxes. Maybe you can do some centralization and some backhaul. And you can do some stuff to mitigate against that. But you guys have already nailed that without having to buy all these different products and industries, and you guys, good. I love it.
Yep. And even from Gartner's perspective, this clicked for them almost right away. We have the users on one side needing to connect to the applications on the other, and there's just no elegant place to put an appliance anymore. But if we can connect both sides into a cloud scale architecture that delivers all of these services at the same time, then we really have something. Then we can get really granular so that the wind turbines can only connect to each other and to 2 or 3 specific applications, maybe 1 in the data center and 2 in the cloud. And we create a tight rule set around where that wind turbine gets to go laterally on the network, as well as over the internet. Then we're able to preserve those pathways so that they're encrypted, so that the wind turbines can talk to each other and share whatever data is needed, but don't become a hole in the fabric of the network itself. Similar to a point of sale system, Trader Joe's had a very unique requirement for their refrigeration units at every location that were IoT enabled, very similar requirement. And in the end, a SASE architecture as rendered here by Gartner, which again, this is exactly what Cato can deliver today. This makes this possible at cloud scale. So we don't have a local appliance that we have to replace every couple of years because the brain can't think fast enough for tomorrow's requirements. The big bang with this type of architecture is if something new is needed, we just insert it as a feature. Matt, the same way if some new collaboration thing is needed, Microsoft would just build it into Teams, right? And RingCentral would have a version of it. 8x8 would have a version of it. It wouldn't be some new product coming out of stealth, raising $1 billion like all the security companies do. In the end, the future of networking and security, as this article, this white paper from Gartner is titled, "The Future of Networking and Security is in the Cloud," because this becomes a more durable, sustainable architecture.
And I think you look at some of the competitors that they're doing this from more of a box, own it yourself fashion, which again is definitely an option. You can see about 70% of the people already still doing that. But their P&L, profit and loss, is predicated on upgrading boxes every 2 or 3, like this old Cisco model. Like you had to upgrade. Palo Alto's a bit like that. Love what they're doing. Both of them, they're amazing companies, but their P&L is based on you upgrading your hardware every 2-3 years. And the people have just been accustomed to doing that. The whole concept now is like we put this, not low power, but I don't need a lot of processing power at the edge now because it's all at the core making the decisions, kind of where the world's going, and you guys are at the forefront of that. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, for everyone in the session today, and Matt, you can relate to this, if you move from a premise-based phone system to a UCaaS architecture, it's a cloud rendered solution, but you might still have a local media gateway on site that's there to tie that location full of users into the cloud architecture. It doesn't have its own brain. It doesn't do its own thinking. The capabilities are rendered from the cloud, but that local gateway just ties the two together. And that is very similar to the way that SASE architectures function, where there's a local gateway that doesn't have its own brain. It doesn't have any spinning parts, but it's there to provide that multi-path bonding facilitation with those multiple internet connections and tie that location in an encrypted session to the closest POP in the cloud architecture. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit.
Cool. Well, I think
go ahead with the next poll.
80% say yes, they see value in combining the two. So playing right into your hands there. So nice. I don't know if you did the Jedi Master mind trick on them, or I don't see why you wouldn't do it, but there are instances for sure. We've got customers that mandate they keep the Palo Alto separate and they work great together. So I get it. There's no right or wrong, but you can see from the results, most people see the benefit of putting them together. All right.
Certainly.
You're on.
And I apologize, Matt, because I've been doing all the talking. Let's get the engineers to the table. Paul, if I could ask you a question. I know this particular design that we have up, this is a figure from Gartner that basically depicts the future state of where this is all going, the future of what SASE delivers. So many of our customers have told us, and we believe as well, that Cato is the closest to this architecture. Can you kind of give us a sense of, maybe, what the future looks like, where Cato is going in terms of, some of the elements that we're already delivering here that provide value for customers, and what we're planning in the future?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Certainly the conversation is what your future state could look like when you get to this phase, right? Where we believe we can deliver this solution now as part of a Cato solution. The network and security are converged, absolutely. And that's where we'll see a lot of the competitors in the space are trying to figure out how they can bring their products along in that space. And we continue to deliver new services. And because of our as a service model, we can just layer those on top of the Cato management application, and you can take advantage of those as part of your solution without additional truck roll, without additional panes of glass that layer in on top of there. So things like CASB that we have coming out, we're in an early availability phase right now for some of our key customers in that space. So that will be a service that you can take advantage of on the Cato management platform, just as part of your service that's already deployed. So that's if I want to implement tomorrow, I can turn it on. There's no additional needs or different applications that are required in that space. And same with our things like you'll probably talk about this here with our managed detection and response platform, things of that nature, where because we provide an as a service platform, you can layer those services and take advantage of them when they come out, and not with upgrading my software and an elaborate migration plan to ultimately get me there.
That's right. Nice and simple. Thank you, Paul.
You got it.
Now, Gartner believes, Gartner's pretty bullish about this. So when a lot of this initial work on SASE was published by Gartner in 2019, they projected at the time that by 2024, that 40% of enterprises would have strategies to adopt SASE or have already moved toward it, up from less than 1% at the end of 2018. And they listed a number of what they called sample vendors, or representative vendors, of which Cato was on a fairly short list with some, arguably giant companies in the networking and security space.
Thank God they did the list in alphabetical. Thank God they did the list in alphabetical order.
It's always fun when they listen alphabetically. That's right. But to give you a sense of how fast this has moved and the impact that the pandemic has had on SASE adoption, the latest work by Gartner, which was written up in March early this year, has accelerated this pace, that by the next year, 2025, they see 60% adoption, which we were at 10% at the end of last year. Between the 6 remaining sample vendors or representative vendors, of which Cato is one of a very small number. So there are definitely competing strategies here. There's competing designs. At Cato, we believe we have the most comprehensive design. So what we encourage all enterprises to do is just try it. Take a look at where the pain is, and look for, across the spectrum of those use cases we talked about in the first slide. If you want to start moving away from MPLS, if your firewalls are going end of life and you'd like to consider a cloud-based security solution, if you've got performance complaints all over the place from global users or remote users, if you're just tired of dealing with Sophos over here and Palo over here and Checkpoint over there or Cisco, and you want a simpler strategy for all this, looking at some of those use cases for some of the business units in your empire where this might be a valuable solution, it's a good way to start looking at how you can begin to adopt these strategies, and also look at the benefits and math of moving toward a solution like this. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, just this is one while you're talking. I don't know if it takes over the whole screen. This is just letting them. We'll come back to this one in a couple of minutes. So if you want to keep going, I'll.
Sure, no problem.
Does this? Yeah, go ahead. Keep going. Yep.
So with Cato, we incorporate the functions of SD-WAN. So Edge SD-WAN, again, we use a local gateway called a socket that does that multipath bonding, all the active elements of taking diverse internet connections and or internet and MPLS, and doing policy-based routing and all the things that you would expect of an Edge SD-WAN solution. We include that as one of the features of our product, of our platform. We inject the global connectivity element to create that Hyperloop experience for users that help to reduce packet loss, latency, and jitter for global connectivity. We provide all the security elements in skin, not only in the core. So Cato's core architecture is zero trust native. So we're able to layer in that AI and machine learning, all those elements to do real-time behavioral correlation and other threat detection elements in our engine all the time, as well as being able to secure all transmissions from all users and applications, but specifically at branches where customers feel like they need it right now. We incorporate the cloud acceleration and cloud access aspect into the Cato solution. Again, it's just an intrinsic perk. So if you're using services at an Equinix facility or a Switch data center in Vegas or IO in Phoenix, and in combination with an AWS and Azure instance, a GCP instance, especially with different geographies, connecting them all with a subscription to Cato Cloud can help provide an accelerated experience for users to get access to those critical infrastructure elements in your empire. The mobile access remote work element, again, is just another component in the Cato solution. It's a part of our design. So typically a Cato design would include a bandwidth-based subscription at the hub locations, we call them, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and remote worker licensing, which is structured within the Cato world per named user for up to 3 devices. And then unified management, one pane of glass to manage the entire experience, to be able to auto provision users depending on what strategies you'd like to use, We integrate as well, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We integrate with single sign-on tools like Okta and Active Directory, which makes provisioning services much easier. We have an active API and a whole range of different ways to streamline the deployment process. So again, even if you're Trader Joe's and you are thrilled that you don't have to replace your 550 routers with a shiny new SD-WAN box. Instead, it's a cloud-delivered solution. As branches need to be opened or new users need to be onboarded, Cato makes it simple to be able to do all those things today. From a global architecture perspective, Cato delivers its service through a distributed cloud architecture. So instead of like what you may see with some cloud solutions where there's an east node and a west node, instead we have a POP in every major city delivering the entirety of Cato's architecture. So this is a unique way of delivering SASE or secure access service edge services and solutions, because with some of our competitors, they have this network of POPs, but they're not threaded together. They don't include the totality of their architecture in all of the POPs, only in some of them. And I know, Paul, you've got some distinctions there between how Cato has deployed this from a global access perspective and how some of our competitors have decided to deliver services. You want to talk through some of those distinctions?
Sure. So from that aspect of things, there's largely a concept of POPs with a lot of the solutions out there, but that POP is handling things at that point in time and then handing you to the common internet at that point. Or if they provide some element of private network access, it's another product that they've leveraged on there, or another partner for that place to combine what we call the middle mile together. So what you're missing from that side is the ability to policy route traffic, to control that traffic, to provide security services that are common both for internet bound as well as your WAN or your private network bound at the same time. So our solution looks at that and provides that very tightly controlled SLA tier 1 network backbone that connects all of our POPs together, so you can take advantage of those of our optimized connectivity wherever you happen to be in the world.
I mean, I'd like to even take that a step further, because you're just comparing this to other providers, SASE providers that actually have a network that they can actually leverage onto, which is less than half of your competitors. The guys, the big guys that push boxes don't have a network, and they have to get the game. So they get to now say they're SASE, which they are, but you got to manage it yourself. Maybe I just ripped the whole thing, but spend a minute on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. A lot of the traditional SD-WAN vendors are merely trying to connect you, optimize from maybe your 2 internet connections, and then everything else, it's hands off, right, at that point in time. Or maybe they even provide, let's say, hey, which of my 2 links to some internet carriers gives me the best performance to Office 365. And again, that's the end of it, right? Where we differ in that space, when you connect to our POP location, we will make a determination when you're going to Office 365, you can actually ride our backbone from, let's say you connect in the Seattle area, but it's being hosted out of Ashburn. You'll run across the Cato backbone and you'll exit optimize at that POP location right at where the cloud exchange lives, where all the cloud titans, the as a service providers live, so that you're, sub 10 milliseconds access away from the Cato cloud to any of those services at any time.
Whereas a lot of the other ones are just leaving it up to the internet to make the routing decision.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool.
That's right. And we don't want to leave that to chance.
No.
As you know, Matt, with voice, video, virtual desktop, and other really performance-sensitive applications, what can go wrong? The network configuration's messed up. The security elements, there's ports that block the transmission. And the user experience to get to those applications is flawed. Sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. And that inconsistency drives people nuts. So what this backbone is able to do is solve for that. Use the local commodity internet at the edge for what it's good for. High bandwidth throughput, low cost, in region. But then once you leave that ISP's network and go somewhere else, in order to get a packet from Sunnyvale, California to Miami, Florida, it's riding over several different ISP's backbones. And you get all this unpredictability in the middle, in between. So by using a backbone-based solution like Cato, we get you off the internet in Sunnyvale, and then you ride Hyperloop style on our backbone to get to Miami, and you hop off for local egress. And it provides this very elegant solution where if Steven Spielberg is in his office, he has these expectations for his networking and security in the office that should always be there. But as soon as he takes the same machine and goes home, he expects those same networking and security elements to be there. And Cato helps make that true because we have something that lives in his laptop. If he picks up and goes on location to Singapore, again, he connects to the Singapore POP and gets the fastest possible, most reliable access to the applications he needs because he's the same user and he's accessing the same Cato instance. So the portability of this, the edgeless aspect of this, the dynamic of we don't care what device the user's on, those are all things that just help free up agility for businesses to use Cato and have the networking and security elements handled in the background ever present.
I think you answered the question, but one of the questions that came in a while ago, I was trying to weave it in at the right time, is you've got this work from home workforce and all of a sudden now they come back. I think you just answered it because the guy goes to Tokyo, it just works. If they all come back to the office, it just works, right? Maybe spend a minute about that.
That's right.
You don't do anything, or maybe you do. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we'll talk in a little bit about the remote worker use case in particular, but where Cato has been really brilliant for a lot of companies is this notion that, if you have, say, 3 data center or cloud instances that 1,100 remote workers need to access, and that's all you need for right now, but in 6 months, everyone's going to start going back to work. Instead of being stuck with these remote access licenses, with Cato, we just change the configuration, because if we move from a remote access oriented design to a branch oriented design instead, and we just recalibrate how those users get to Cato. So the flexibility and adaptability to be able to do that makes Cato really interesting versus a lot of the sort of standalone remote access providers. You're then stuck with all the licenses because they don't provide SD-WAN. They don't provide a WAN op, a branch oriented type of solution for their architectures where Cato does. That's a big difference.
Cool.
So within the Cato architecture, and this applies for any SASE vendor that fits this paradigm where it's all together and delivered from the cloud, the Cato Cloud instance has all these networking and security functions humming all the time. We then what we call attach the users and infrastructure instances. Again, those users and applications that need to be connected, we connect them into Cato, which helps form the network and move the edge into the Cato Cloud, which allows us to then render those networking policies in real time and give the enterprise IT administration and operations teams complete control over those rule sets with some templates that we can use, some sort of default protocols, but you can highly customize those experiences. So the marketing people get to go here, but not there. The executives get to do whatever they want, but we provide the security and networking elements and rule sets all in the same place. So we're able to provide macro level rules. So we don't want any traffic in or out of China or Russia or Chechnya. We want to allow outbound to India, but no inbound, but only for this one work group. You're able to get as granular and customized as you like to dictate who gets to go where once they're connected. But with this ever-present security, again, behavioral correlation engine. So if Steven Spielberg tries to go to some finance server that he's allowed to go to, but he tries to do it 57 times in 10 minutes, a platform like this is able to think that that's weird. And if it violates certain policies and thresholds, we're able to clip that transmission in real time to, again, safeguard the digital assets that need to be protected in a customer's empire. We talked a little bit earlier, Matt, about this idea that, in a normal managed services scenario, you'd have to ask us to make basic changes. And that's just not, we don't want to do that. It's much easier to just give the keys to the customer. If there's an MSP that does your daily blocking and tackling for networking and security rules and policies, as the customer administrator, you can just give control of your Cato instance to your MSP and empower them. We can work with them to train them and to make sure that they know how to use the dashboard as effectively as possible. They can call into our support if they need assistance for tier 2, tier 3. And that way we provide a co-managed service together as Cato, your partner, your technology provider partner, and with you as a customer and if possible, with the help of Packet Fusion's team. In some cases, there's some tuning that's needed, and we all can help participate to make sure your environment is as smoothly tuned as possible, so that your users get the best experience out of the product that they can. And then worst case scenario, as a customer, you really don't have anyone with the proper level of skill to be able to manage this environment. You'd rather have us do it all day. We do provide a fully managed service when it's appropriate to do so. So starting with this core architecture, we provide all the networking and security elements out of the box for every subscription, which is unusual. So if you're really just looking for an SD-WAN solution, and you don't want to, and let's say you have an HA pair of firewalls with Palo Alto or whoever in your data centers, and you don't want to reinvent the wheel there, we, in alignment with the networking solution that Cato can provide, we do provide the security as a service aspects as a part of your subscription at no additional cost, so that we can, again, block traffic from China, from Russia, provide rule set enforcement before that traffic hits your local firewall in the data center. So that way your HA firewalls are free to just do the VLAN segmentation, the deep stuff, and not have to be encumbered with some of the other things that we can do at the cloud level. We can also connect and secure all the remote workers, so that that doesn't become a burden on your local firewalls as well. And that's a really good example of how Cato can be wielded in concert with solutions that you may want to ride out those investments a little bit longer, especially if you have an existing security solution. So we talked a little about this edge gateway. Again, it doesn't have a brain, it doesn't have any spinning parts. It's designed just to tie location into the Cato cloud. But we do have some circumstances where a lot of remote workers that just have basic requirements, like myself, I just have a soft client that sits in my laptop that connects me to the closest Cato POP. But for an entity like Roku and Logitech, they're both big technology companies with Cato, Roku had some power users that really needed one of these sockets at their house because they have 2 internet connections. I believe they were using Fortinet or another solution at home because they're doing heavy like 8K video streaming and things like that, that they had those kind of requirements for some of their staff. So for a handful of those remote workers, we can deploy a socket and treat it like a mini branch. It's just one of the different ways that, that those edges can connect into the Cato architecture. So we do, and over the last year, we've had quite a number of remote worker use cases where connecting all those remote workers, either via a thick client or other access methodology, connecting them into a physical data center and maybe an AWS instance, and that's the whole solution that's needed. We've seen a lot of those work from home use cases where Cato's been able to solve that one problem, that one challenge just by itself. And then later we can add the additional elements of SD-WAN and true security as a service for the entire enterprise. The big bang here in terms of remote workers is if you're using legacy VPNs, often that ties the remote worker into a physical appliance somewhere, a firewall / VPN concentrator. That backhaul can significantly degrade, in some cases, the user experience. And sometimes the user, if they can, will turn it off and just go straight out to their RingCentral, Salesforce, Office 365 experience. And then all those transmissions are not covered from a security perspective. And then the other big thing here with these legacy VPNs is these sessions grant network level access, which is inherently bad, especially for zero trust, versus the newer way of connecting these users. Again, with an entity like Cato, you connect that user to the closest POP to wherever they are, and we're able to grant them application level granular access. Only the things they're allowed to do based on the kind of user they are, based on the work group that they're a part of. We give them permissions to get to the things they need, which we construct within the profile of their, say, multi-factor or single sign-on instance. So if you're using Okta or Active Directory, we simply integrate and pull through those profiles. So when we connect that user, they're only allowed to go to the things they're allowed to go to, and they're blocked from doing everything else. They're able to get a localized experience by connecting to a POP in their city and not having to backhaul to a physical firewall. And they're able to do all that at cloud scale in the $4 to $5 or under per user type of license, as opposed to having to rig up your firewalls to address those remote worker requirements. That's been a big use case for a solution like this version of SASE from Cato.
We're getting close here, Mark. Got 1 or 2 minutes.
Yep. So from a network optimization standpoint, we'll end on this. In the end, a lot of customers really want to look at using an SD-WAN as a service combined with security in order to provide quality assurance for remote desktop solutions, for VoIP, for UC and contact center, especially for folks working from home. And Cato can help facilitate that, that quality assurance, help give you a bird's eye view of everything everywhere, as well as the ability to tune that environment in real time. So this has become, and Matt, you and I have talked about this, it's become such a big adoption factor for SASE that we've actually seen a lot of the contact center and UC providers start to recommend that customers look at Cato when they're moving from premise to cloud. In the end, some finance officers in particular and other risk-averse folks, they're concerned moving from premise to cloud, how we're going to see everything and preserve the user experience so people don't complain. And we want to make sure that our risks are handled. And using Cato in conjunction with those migrations for cloud and for UC and contact center as a service can help reduce those risks and make them very well managed, especially in testing phases. And this has become so prevalent that RingCentral themselves have actually become a big customer for Cato. It's a big use case on our website.
Yeah, I mean, they position you guys in the sales process. They also use you guys in their back end. That's what you mean here.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, RingCentral has 13 POPs around the world, and they now use our 70 POPs to augment their user experiences. And there's all these intrinsic perks that get unlocked if you are using Cato and RingCentral together.
That's cool. Yeah, we're big fans of what RingCentral's doing. We're on their advisory council and sell a ton of their stuff, so we like what they're doing. So you got 1 minute. Well, you don't even have a minute, but why don't you wrap this up, bring it home, tell me what you want everybody to remember.
Certainly. So let's go back to the beginning to the key use cases. In the end, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you're having concerns around the viability of your MPLS going forward, your firewalls are going end of life in the next 6 months to a year, you're getting complaints to your help desk around work from home or global performance challenges, you're just tired of Palo Alto and Cisco's shenanigans, and you'd rather have a vendor that cares, that as a real strategic partner, these are all reasons to consider a network migration at all. And it's an opportunity to transform your environment, make life a little simpler, put more time back in your day in some cases, and reduce costs. And with Packet Fusion's help, they are the ultimate guides, the ultimate tour guides to a transformation experience for all things UC, contact center, network and security, cloud, and infrastructure. Please talk to Matt, talk to the Packet Fusion team, and let us know how we can be of service.
Mark, you're awesome. Paul, thank you. Ellen, thanks for organizing. We'll talk to everybody next month. If you have any questions or interest on SASE, make sure you get a hold of me, Matt Pingatore. You got enough emails from me already inviting you to this. You know how to get a hold of me, but we'd love to help. So with that, Mark, I'm sure I'll see you sooner than later. Thanks again for your help, and we'll see you guys soon.
Well,
thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Take care.